giant David O. Russell has a new movie in theaters this Friday. He who gave us The Fighter, American Hustle, Joy, Silver Linings Playbook, Three Kings, lots of movies that a lot of people like. I like some of those. Some of them I haven't seen. Joy, I know you like Joy, I believe. I haven't actually watched that one. This is not that. This is Amsterdam, a star-studded affair set in the 30s in New York and Amsterdam. Amsterdam and New Amsterdam, if you will. Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Robert DeNiro, Andrea Riseborough, who we both love.
Yes.
Underused here. Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Rock shows up. Michael Shannon shows up. Mike Myers shows up. That's weird. And Taylor Swift. I want to ruin the Taylor Swift appearance, but I don't want to ruin the Taylor. No, you know what? I can. Hold on, but I can do it. I can do it in a way that gets me off the hook. The entire movie is trying to figure out who Christian Bale and John David Washington are accused of killing a rich New York socialite, Taylor Swift. There, I did it. She gets pushed under a car. Might have been my favorite part of the movie, Taylor Swift getting pushed under a car. But
I'm not anti-Taylor.
You're not. I know. So no, what the movie is really, that's what the movie is theoretically about.
Sure.
These two guys trying to get themselves off the hook, but in doing so, they discover a vast international conspiracy to overthrow the U.S. government.
Yes.
And so some of the events in here actually happened, I believe, is the title card. Which
and that is correct.
And that is, well, really like one of the events in this movie actually happened, which it's our favorite topic. One in which I was arguing with another critic beforehand about historical accuracy.
Well,
based on, inspired by some of the stuff in this movie actually happened.
Yeah. Well, and it's here's the problem, though, I think, and that's where we stumble upon this. What is this movie really about? What is the narrative of this film, and what is important? Because I think that we end up having a few different movies within one movie that are all fighting to be their own movie.
You are not incorrect.
And none of them get resolved in a way that feels like any of those movies actually got made. Because we have this story of, Amsterdam being this idyllic place where
post-World War I, a lot of, these two guys wind up there.
Yeah, basically two soldiers end up with this really attractive woman, and they have kind of, artistic, meaningful, sort of utopian life, but it's because they carved out a corner of the world for themselves. Not because the world was a utopia, but because they found a place where they could exist outside of, they weren't supposed to be there. None of them were supposed to be there. And so Amsterdam was like this place that was almost mythological as they eventually had to leave. So it was almost this idea of how do we return to Amsterdam?
Or to the idea of Amsterdam.
How do we get back to this portion of our life that we appreciated, but maybe not enough? Or, is it a weight around their necks now that they had this time that they can't figure out how to get back to? And so they're kind of, torn and haunted, and the reality of their current situation is I think disappointing. There's some really interesting stuff that could be going on in this film. It is going on in this film, but then you also got the kind of the political aspect, the overthrowing of the government sort of thing, which is very caper-ish, particularly because of the setting in which it's presented. It feels kind of like an old, not silly, but slightly screwball-y,
Right.
exaggerated sort of mystery that you sort of take seriously, but not entirely, because the characters are so extreme, physically, or you know, they're just an odd collection of characters. None of them
Yeah,
actually feel like real people.
well, okay, so one of the people in this film is based on an actual person, and that is Robert De Niro's character.
Yes.
Everyone else is like a parody of someone who might have been alive at this time and in these circumstances. The idea narratively is that there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of threads that start. We've got flashbacks, we've got narration. Some of the dialogue, dude, I wrote it like vacillates between stilted and clunky, which is weird. And some of the performances, they, they're like Wes Anderson adjacent.
Yeah, but I think Wes Anderson builds the world that
He does, and that's why I said adjacent.
Yeah, yeah.
They're more akin to, but not really quite worthy of inclusion in a top shelf Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched The French Dispatch, which neither of us really thought was top shelf Wes Anderson, but I don't even think these are even quite good enough to make The French Dispatch in terms of how they feel.
Probably
Again,
not.
And I think a lot of that is the script. David O. Russell wrote this as well as directed it. And again, sometimes I just think that's a bad idea. But even if you don't credit somebody, someone's got to be looking over your shoulder. But the problem, I think, whereas we also watched See How They Run, another period, little later period.
Oddly relevant, yeah.
Right. But so its narrative deviations are reflective of the film of the subject matter that they're making, I guess, or that they're doing in that film. And it feels appropriate to that particular film. This feels like it should be a See How They Run idea, but it feels more freaking Manchurian Candidate.
Well, I think the
in terms of story,
I think See How They Run, I would have liked it to be a little better than it was, but again, we talk about movies knowing what they are and paying tribute to what they are, and being true to what they are. And in a lot of ways, See How They Run is a movie that, its goal was not nearly as lofty as I think Amsterdam's goal, or
right.
I think Amsterdam was shooting for the moon, whereas I think See How They Run always wanted to kind of be a fun, delightful, don't think too much sort of, mystery. Whereas
right.
I think Amsterdam really wants you to think, and at times I think it does ask you to think.
But I think it's too smart by half, or it thinks it's too smart by half.
Well, and that may be because ultimately, as I said earlier, there's no real payoff. And when you have all these kind of, it's not even like, I mean, the stories are very like right next to each other. It's not like we have these random stories that then come together at the end. These are, stories that are very close to each other, and intertwine, and then just kind of drift off into, just when you feel like it should be making a point is when you realize that it already tried to make its point and it's wrapping things up.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's just it's an odd bit. It never really gels as a
no, and
film.
it's it starts off as basically the commander that these it's again it's going back to the glory days, which is ironic because they go back to when they were in World War I and had a sense of purpose,
Mhm.
and had this leader, and the leader dies, and so they want to figure out why the leader died, and then the leader's daughter dies, and they get all entangled in this sort of thing, and then it just so happens that they run into their old friend in a situation that feels a little forced. um,
Yeah.
it just doesn't. There are aspects of this film that I like a lot, and there's ideas in this film that I like a lot. Ultimately, the stuff that I like isn't really what I think the film turns out to be about, which is
Right.
about the things that are sort of true.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
I like the stuff that probably isn't true at all
well, the
a bit
only thing
more.
that's true again is the general's testimony.
Yeah.
But even that testimony was debunked. So the fact that he gave it is the true part. But after that, it's like, did the rest of it actually happen? Was he correct in what he said, or was he wrong? Was he, crazy person like the media back then made him out? So I mean, yeah, you could deep dive into this and go, oh, anti-capitalism or evils of capitalism. Oh, the evils of media. Oh, the evils of war. Oh, but again, it just never all coalesces. I said the film more it congeals narratively. It doesn't really gel. It just kind of congeals. And then you get to the end of the movie, which well over 2 hours. And you're right. You never and nothing ever really feels done. It just kind of ends. All the little bits just kind of tail off, and then Amsterdam. That's the last. I think the last word of the film. So yeah, it's a very it's just a very incomplete, I guess. Uh, a lot of pieces, but they don't. The whole picture is not there. I guess is the best way I can put it. So it's weird. It's just and this
Well, I
cast
mean,
is so good.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And when kind of the twist comes, because there has to be a twist.
Right.
I I was almost I don't know that I cared. Like it was like it should have been more dramatic, but I think because it, there's the
Are
core of
you
this.
talking about the equivalent of Trust No One?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
just think
Then yeah,
there's a
it's like, oh,
but
there are certain
but it
things that in film.
yeah, but it's almost like at that point the people involved weren't the people you. I don't know. I was really attached to the original small story, which is about three friends.
Right.
And then once it expands beyond those three friends, and then expands yet again,
Right.
I don't know that I care, or I don't know that they've established enough for me to care, or that it really quite has the what significant. It doesn't feel nearly as significant as it should, and maybe that's the problem. Um,
Yeah.
I, I, yeah, I don't hate the film. I don't love the film.
Yeah, I just said
I
I don't hate it. I just don't particularly like it.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a satisfying film. I think that ultimately that is my problem with it, is that it tried to tell multiple stories and didn't end up actually telling any of those stories completely.
Yeah.
Um, and one of those stories I liked quite a bit, um, only
Yeah.
to find that it was kind of a device, you
Yeah.
know, to lead to something. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, it's just it. Yeah, I see why I see why it was getting not great press before we saw it. Again, and I try not to read stuff, but you can't miss headlines again, and that's the downside to this business. If you see a headline, it's like, well, you can't not read it. It's the headline. It's right there in front of you. And then you're like, oh, wow, that, most people, they don't bury the lead. They stick it right there in the headline for you.
Sure. Clickbait.
Which is like, but no, it's just not great. Which is sad.
Well, and that this is going to be a film that is still going to get a lot of hype to be considered for Oscar nominations. And I just everyone involved has done better work. I think that sums up how I feel about this film.
Everyone has done better work.
Everyone has done better.
Yep, everyone has done better, but not here. So there you go. So yeah, that's it. Amsterdam opens Friday exclusively in theaters. That would be October 7th if you're keeping track at home. So I can't tell you not to watch it, but I can tell you there's better films to watch in theaters or at home. Really, there's a lot of good streaming stuff as well. So there you go. That's what we have. Ryan and I have a ton of other stuff to watch. We got a couple movies this week, got a movie next week, got another movie the week after that, and probably even more dribbling down as well. There's a new Marvel thing that we need to talk about this week once we watch it. So hopefully we'll get to that. But I believe that releases Friday on Disney. Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we get to talk about that in time. If not, I'm sure we'll talk about it because I'm sure there'll be something to mention about it. So we'll see how that goes. So that's it. Amsterdam, Friday. Star-studded cast, wonderful director. Results. That's what we got. So
yeah.
Go ahead. No, you wanted to say it. You want to say something?
No. I was just going to say, but Amsterdam's a phenomenal city, and if you get an opportunity to go visit it, you really should.
Oh, I would love to go through Europe. We'll have to talk about that.
So. It's a wonderful, and I'm saying this as someone who doesn't go to the red light district. I spent Van Gogh Museum, the city layout. It's just even the Anne Frank house, and they've got another really wonderful museum. But anyway, very nice venue called the Paradiso to see a band in too.
Oh,
anyway,
there you go.
I love Amsterdam. I would live in Amsterdam if I could, but it's like the second most expensive city in Europe. So
Wow. I was not aware of that particular fact. I just checked that off my list of places to move in Europe. There you go. Don't forget to like us, follow us on social media at VS Movie Podcast. You know the drill. Till we talk again, stay safe, be good. Go see a movie in a theater, or if you don't want to go to a theater, lots of good streaming options. We've talked about a few here. Go check those out. And until we talk again, I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you guys.
And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.